Thank you. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, we are grateful for the experiences of life that help us to learn and to grow. We're thankful to live in this great country and in this community in Vero Beach. How blessed we are. And we're thankful for community-minded people and dedicated community leaders. As this city council meeting begins, we ask thy Spirit to quicken the minds and soften the hearts of all who petition this council this night, that all matters can be discussed with thoughtfulness and clarity and civility. And as decisions are rendered, that they be made with wisdom and in the best interest of all, that the quality of life of all in this community will be enhanced. Help us to be good stewards of that which we have been blessed with, and to be the best that we are capable of being. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I open the April 15th, 6 o'clock meeting, regular city council meeting in the city of Vero Beach. Mrs. Bach, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, here.
Ms. Grace?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. Before we get to preliminary matters, many of you know that our 32nd mayor died over the weekend, Warren Winchester. Warren was mayor from March of 95 to March of 96. He served on the city council in 1987 to 89 and 94 to 96. He started to run this last time, and his health prevented him from doing so. It was my pleasure to know Warren Winchester. There never was a harder worker or anyone who loved this community more than Warren Winchester. So I ask for a minute of silence here, please. All right. Agenda additions, deletions, and adoptions.
None here.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The first proclamation, I believe you have, Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, this is Autism Awareness and Related Disabilities Month. Who's going to be receiving this?
Why don't all of you come down?
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few. And just for information, we are, I guess, wearing these ribbons for autism.
I'm sure
Go
Carmen
ahead
will,
behind the...
I'm sure Carmen will tell us how the ribbons work.
Okay, the proclamation reads, whereas autism is a pervasive development disorder affecting the social, learning, and behavioral skills of those affected by it. And autism was once thought to be a relatively rare disorder affecting only 1 in 10,000 people. And as more and more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 110 children. And while there is no known cure for autism yet, it is well documented that if an individual with autism receives treatment early in their lives, it is possible for that individual to make significant improvement. And the Florida Atlantic University Center for Autism and Related Disabilities is a charitable, nonprofit organization spearheading an awareness effort in order to educate parents, professionals, and the general public with the intent of unlocking the potential of people with autism, supporting advocates for autism-related issues and scientific research, and eliminating the stigma through public awareness in order to unite the community through volunteerism. And whereas since 2005, FAU, Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, has provided free consultation training, technical assistance, and support to individuals with autism, their families, schools, businesses, and medical community, as well as the community and the government agencies providing support to over 3,300 constituents across the Treasure Coast and Palm Beach. Now, therefore, the City Council of Vero Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim April 2014 as FAU Center for Autism and Related Disabilities Month. Would you care to say?
Thank you very much. We really appreciate this. And on behalf of our families, we're now up to 3,500 families, and we serve 844 families in the Treasure Coast. And I have two of our families here, Carmen Noonan, you all know her, and Patrick and her husband, and then Rebecca Everett. And Rebecca runs, there are two support groups here in Indian River, and Rebecca runs a very healthy support group that meets once a month and provides a lot of support. And her services, what these two ladies do are amazing. They're on our Parent Advisory Committee. They're very supportive of FAU CARD. And we appreciate everything that you all do for us. We do have 3 locations. I know that there's some confusion, even when FAU left Port St. Lucie, the Indian River State College, we are still there on that campus. So I know there's been some confusion about that, but we've been there and actually we're meeting with the provost on April 29th and hoping to embed ourselves in that campus and support the students there that have autism. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Could we ask about the ribbons? And
Absolutely. Carmen, you want to say something about the ribbons? What do they mean? And
Well, the ribbon represent the peaceful process because autism is still a mystery. We don't know yet what causes autism, and it's different component. The brightness represent the hope for not only the individual but also for the families and the community. The number since the last time then they received the data is now in 68 people. So we're trying to do from awareness in moving to actions, and also gratitude for what you are doing for us. Thanks.
Thank you for your work.
Please be with you. Please be with you.
thank you for all the goodies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Turner?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add on autism, as part of the Impact 100, they just donated a $100,000 grant to have an autism facility open up in Indian River County area.
wonderful.
So hopefully they'll go a long way to helping all these families. Support.
They would like to have a picture with the council.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the stuff. Thank you. I want to invite Bishop and Rob and Bill, if y'all would like to come out to the dais, please. Proclamation. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a long history of providing humanitarian services in response to emergencies and natural disasters. The Church has been challenged by its leaders to extend the same service to those in need during times other than emergencies. Hence, the Indian River County Day of Service. On the Day of Service, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will volunteer in their communities and link arms with other churches, community organizations, and local businesses in an effort to assist and serve the needy and less fortunate. The Indian River County Day of Service provides a much-needed service to those in need in the community, and it is an opportunity for different faiths, civic organizations, and businesses in Indian River County to share and work together. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach does hereby proclaim the last Saturday of April as a day of service in the City of Vero Beach and urge all citizens and churches of all faiths to become aware of this Vero Beach Day of Service as the day in which our community of different faiths links arms and lend a helping hand to those most in need. Should I say something?
Thank you very much. We appreciate that proclamation, and thank you for sponsoring that. This is the 6th year in a row that we've conducted the Day of Service. I've been fortunate to be involved with all 6, not in my current capacity, but most of the time as a grunt in the trenches, so to speak, working. But it's a great privilege to serve this community and to have the opportunity to work with so many wonderful people here in the Vero Beach and Indian River County area. We are fortunate to have over 20 organizations that have joined us this year and will be participating in the activities on the 26th. We have many sponsors who have donated materials and supplies and money to help with these projects. So it's as we go forward each year, it seems to get bigger and more people involved, and we hope that this is a trend and that we won't have to work as hard in years to come. People will just come to us without having to promote it. But it's a great joy and a pleasure to have this opportunity, and thank you very much. I have the 2 co-chairs with me, Rob Volsky and Bill Johnson, if they want to add to what we've said.
I hope they give us some details where we know where to go and how to call.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. I'll be happy to do that. This year, the churches that I'd like to acknowledge, in addition to ours, are First Presbyterian Church of Vero Beach, First United Methodist Church, Living Lord Lutheran Church, Our Savior Lutheran Church, Temple Beth Shalom, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and the Unity Center of Vero Beach. The civic organizations that are involved this year include the Civil Air Patrol, General Federation of Women's Club, Girl Scouts, Indian River County Sheriff's Department, Indian River Estates Employees, Sunrise Rotary Club, United Way of Indian River County, and Vero Beach High School lacrosse team. So you can see that there's a wide scope and range of participants this year, and we hope that will continue to grow, again, with your support and this proclamation as the word goes out, allowing us to serve in our communities together as a purely interfaith group. I would be amiss if I didn't mention the sponsors. I hate making plugs, but Blue Tangerine Solutions was the website that allowed us to promote the Day of Service. Cobalt's Restaurant, Embroid Me, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Curb, Keep Indian River County Beautiful, Marks at the Point, McDonald's, Morgan Stanley, Penny Hill Subs, PepsiCo, Planet Vero Radio, Poinsettia Groves, Publix, Subway, Taco Bell, and Walmart. And most of those are providing the yummy lunches for the volunteers and driving them out. So this provides an opportunity for the community to serve in many different capacities, and we're hoping that we can get as many as 200 volunteers again this year in Vero Beach and in Sebastian as well. So if anyone would like to contribute in some way, form, or fashion, the website is www.ircdayofservice.org. Some of the projects include projects for I'm going to do this off the top of my head. American Red Cross is going to have a vehicle wash for their emergency vehicles, and that'll be done entirely by the Vero Beach High School boys lacrosse team. So folks have signed up as teams. Habitat for Humanity, Rock the Block, is a tremendous initiative in the county to include the community as community development. We acknowledge through several seminars that we've been to with community leaders that handouts are not necessarily the best thing in the community, but community development, including the community itself in projects, is important as well. So Rock the Block has been adopted as a project for this year. Habitat for Humanity, of course, Restore also has a center that we're going to send volunteers to go and to sort and organize. Harvest Food and Outreach as well has a tremendous facility there that we've respected over the years. The idea being that we can't be out there every single day to help and to serve individuals, but we can help the agencies that help people on a day-to-day basis. So that's an example of some of the organizations that we serve. Were there any questions?
Certainly. So if someone wants to get involved, say, hey, I'd love to spend my Saturday with an intergenerational group of young and old people working across lines and meeting some new friends, besides the website, could I just show up someplace on Saturday morning? And what time are you starting?
April 26th. 8 o'clock in the morning. I know it's early. 8 o'clock at the Indian River Mall on the west side behind Dillard's. We will be having in-person registration. If you're afraid of computers, don't feel afraid to come and show up and have some of the yummy breakfast materials or foods that are prepared. My wife sewed muffins. I'll advertise those at this time. I'll be dying.
And don't miss our muffins. It's certainly worth showing up for Mary's Muffins.
Thank you very much. And in addition, if we can do anything to support the Autism Center that's being constructed soon, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll send some volunteers out to help your organization as well.
Great, thank you.
You want to, Bill?
I honestly don't know that there's anything else to add other than just simply an amen to what's been said. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Bill.
That's great.
Thank you for your work.
I enjoyed it.
Good luck on the 26th.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We were just waiting. We didn't know whether you wanted one or not. But we need a picture with Bill in it, too. Amy, or Carmen.
Carmen will do it.
Carmen can do anything.
Thank you.
All right, number 3 that we have, Mr. Ross Cotterman, and I would imagine Cindy are going to present the annual, a comprehensive annual financial report, the so-called CAFR, which we're required to do each year. So go ahead.
Yes, hi. I am Ross Cotterman. I'm the engagement principal for the audit, and we're here tonight to formally present the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I thought I'd just take a few minutes to give you a couple of highlights on some numbers that have changed and some things I thought would be of interest to you, and point those out. I try to keep the excitement up. I know we've got a lot of joyful opportunities here, so hopefully I won't bring it right back down crashing. Everybody's got smiles and happy thoughts, so we'll keep it going. The first thing on page 9, and just remember too, of course, this is for September 30th, 2013. So that's the audit year, October through September. We've filed the financial statements with the GFOA for the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And on page 9, you'll see that you were awarded that certificate for 2012. We certainly expect that you'll receive that again for 2013 as well. The first thing I want to point out to you, and I'm sure when you got your copy of the CAFR, the first thing you went to was page 13, which is our audit report, and was excited to see that we've actually changed the format of the report. I'm not sure if anybody noticed that or not, but the main thing was there were some new clarity standards that came out, and the audit opinion format has changed. If you see, it tries to lay out in a little more organized fashion the management's responsibility, the auditor's responsibilities, and then our reports as well. So in the end, we still issue a clean opinion. Everything's presented fairly in accordance with governmental accounting standards, and everything is properly reported. Then there's some other matters there. As you know, there's some required supplemental information, the management's discussion and analysis report that starts on page 17, and then some scheduling of pension funding that's back on 93. And then on page 15, we're also telling you that there's a required report for internal controls and grant testing, which is the single audit part of the testing. And I'll talk about that at the end. On page 17 is the management's discussion and analysis, and really a nice 3, 4, 5 page overview of what happened during the year, so you can get a lot of quick information, quick numbers there. You'll see the general fund increased by $1,200,000. The proprietary funds had an increase of 6.4, and then after the transfers of 3, they still had an increase of $3.4 million, and that's across all the proprietary funds. I know there's some back and forth, but just a quick overview of all of those. Starting then on page 29 is the basic financial statements. And the only thing really I wanted to point out here is on page 30. There were some comments last year, I think, by Vice Mayor Kramer suggested some formatting changes that we had changed or suggested change. So we brought those back, maybe make it a little more reader-friendly and provide a little more information. So I just wanted to point out that we made those changes. Then we get back into, and I think also that changed on page 40 as well, if you're interested. On the footnotes, starting on page 50-something, are all the footnotes. I wanted to point out to you 3 footnotes in particular, starting on page 77. During the year, there was a settlement for your internal service fund relative to workers' comp claims and insurance claims. So there's sort of an extraordinary amount of release of a liability there of $1.4 million. So that obligation is no longer there, and the funds are still in that internal service fund. We tried to, the city tried to make sure they properly describe that, and there's a footnote there in the middle section there that talks about this release of settlement reserves. So I just wanted to point that out to you. That was sort of unique this year. On page 81 and through there, we start to talk about the pension cost. Always questions related to the pension activity, and of course, this is all actuarially determined. We're just the reporters of this. We're just the messengers of the information. We do rely on third parties to prepare those actuaries, and then we present their information included in the financial statements. I understand your actuary and Rocky Joyner will be here in the May 8th time frame to talk to the committee for the pension to go through and explain in more detail the pension numbers. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that I can. I did also want to point out on page 87 is the OPEB numbers, which is the other post-employment benefits, primarily the subsidy for health insurance for retired employees. The city did go through and have a new actuary performed during this fiscal year. So on page 87, that table, you'll see there was some significant changes to the liability number, and we can talk about that in particular if you want at this point.
I'd like to give those numbers to the public since they don't have the privilege of having this document in front of them. Please, Mr. Cox.
Sure. It's really it's 2 components or 2 parts to it. I mean, first of all, the actuary really determined amounts is that there is a liability for the city of $55 million, and that's the number that will be, to pay off all of these benefits into future years. The way that the city has chosen to fund this, and is perfectly acceptable, and is allowed by the professional standards, is a pay-as-you-go concept. So, as you incur these expenses that are budgeted, and you're paying for those expenses, the table on 14 is showing you that, based on that $55 million number that's supposed to be amortized, and one option would be to fund that number and put it into a trust fund. So if you were trying to fund that over a 30-year amortization period, plus pay your current year expenses, you're $14 million short of doing that because you're paying on an as-you-go basis. Again, an acceptable format, and a lot of cities do it that way, but that's what that number, $14 million, represents, that between the normal cost and then the amortization of the $55 million each year, since we only pay as you go, we're not really funding that amortization amount. So each year farther and further behind as far as that calculation. So that's the $14 million number. That increased by $2.6 million in the current year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just trying to make it aware to the
Right.
public that the considerable increase we had there. Thank
Right.
you.
Sure. And there's some new professional standards coming out right now to require that $55 million to be recorded. Now, as it stands right now, the OPEB obligation is not included in that standard, but I know there's a great move to include that. It's more directed to the pension obligations as opposed to the OPEB obligation part of it. So we'll see where that's at. And I know, having talked with your director of finance, I mean, there's some opportunities in how to present that. As it stands right now, that fund is really, or that amount is just included in the general government. There's really could be spread across all of the proprietary funds. It's still, the number's still the number, but it's how it would be presented across all of your funding. You could set up a trust, and so there's options there. And I know your finance director is aware of some things. And as we get closer to the implementation of that standard, talking about how you want to deal with that. And then I just, to point out the required information that's on page 94 and 95 and 96 is the general and the pension, the police and the firefighters' pension numbers as well. And again, happy to answer any questions relative to that. The last section I really wanted to talk about really goes all the way back to 159, and those are the reports on the single audit. You receive federal and state grants, mostly from the airport. We're required to test those grants in a specific fashion to make sure they meet the grant compliance requirements, that the expenditures are appropriate. We go through and do a single audit test just for those grants. And these reports are telling us that you're fully in compliance. There was nothing that was noted that wasn't in compliance with those grant agreements. So that's a quick overview. I just kind of wanted to, I'm going to be meeting with your Finance Commission in May 8th, I think it is. I'm sure we'll go through in a much greater detail at that meeting as well, but happy to answer any other questions you might have tonight.
Thank you, Ross.
Just going back on the OPEC, and obviously this is coming out of what we've seen so many other municipalities and other governments getting into trouble by not having a full picture of their liabilities, whether it be pension, the post-employment benefits, et cetera. We're seeing more required disclosure. We expect this trend to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it is sort of silly that over 10 years ago, we didn't recognize any of these liabilities. And so I think it has been a good standard in trying to move forward. They sort of took these baby steps to get people at least to understand them and start to recognize them. Again, the city budgets and tries to project what the annual costs are going to be. So that's that pay-as-you-go part. But you're right. If you actuarially determine what these benefits are going to be for all the employees that have retired as of now and in the future, and based on the current subsidy for the health insurance, that number is projected to be $55 million. Not an insignificant number.
Not at all.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross. All right. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to public comment.
All right. Thank you all.
I would like to ask the indulgence of council. I'd like Mrs. Brundage with Florida Power and Light to come up first. She asked to speak, and I told her she could go first and foremost.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, Council. For the record, Amy Brunges with Florida Power and Light. I came tonight to say a big thank you to you, Mayor Winger, for your efforts on getting that meeting arranged with the FMPA on April 2nd. On behalf of everyone at FPL, we're very appreciative of that, and it appears that you covered quite a bit of ground in that meeting, and that's a very good thing. We did have had a chance to review the minutes of that meeting since you met in the minutes that were released last week. And we do have some concerns about some of the things that were communicated in those minutes. Our Vice President Sam Forrest, who you all know is working tirelessly on this project for the last several years, trying to get as creative and work as hard as he could to overcome some of the obstacles, some of the concerns, to meet the tests and requirements that the FMPA has put forward. And he did have a chance to speak with the FMPA President Nick Gariello, I believe is how you pronounce it, on Friday. to express some of his concerns to Nick and to ask Nick if we could please meet to discuss the concerns that are specific to FPL. But Sam has also written a letter to you, Mr. Mayor Winger, thanking you for your efforts and also outlining his concerns to you so that you will be aware of them and to ask your efforts once again to get us to the table to discuss some of these concerns that are specific to FPL. So I have Mr. Forrest's letter for you tonight, and I'm going to read it into the record so that everyone can be aware of what we have on our mind, and then if I can answer any questions, I certainly will. So if you'll just indulge me for another minute, I'm going to share Sam Forrest's letter with you. Dear Mayor Winger, thank you for your leadership in meeting with FMPA earlier this month. While we are disappointed that FMPA specifically requested FPL not attend the meeting, we do very much appreciate your efforts to move the sale forward. After reviewing the minutes of the April 2nd meeting between the city and FMPA, I want to follow up on FMPA's desire to have an FPL guarantee to satisfy the city's contingent liabilities. First, I find it difficult to believe that FMPA actually expects FPL to enter into an unconditional and unlimited guarantee. Not only is it unfair to put such an onerous burden on FPL's existing customers, but such a requirement is not commercially reasonable in any transaction, and no responsible counterparty could agree to provide that kind of guarantee. We have always agreed with FMPA leadership that FMPA members and bondholders should not be disadvantaged by the sale of Vero's electric system, and we have worked diligently to structure a deal that meets or exceeds that test. However, it is clear that this latest request by FMPA for an unlimited and indefinite FPL guarantee, in addition to the benefits the city is already proposing, actually puts FMPA members and bondholders in a far superior position than they currently enjoy today. This new approach by FMPA only adds additional complexity to the transaction, appears punitive in nature, and is unfortunately not conducive to the parties in reaching an agreement. After many weeks of requesting that FMPA meet with FPL, I did finally speak with Nick Gariello on Friday. I expressed FPL's concern on issuing any such guarantee and my hope that FMPA will eventually agree to meet with FPL so we can seek a more reasonable and commercially viable solution. I would also like to clarify comments made about the $52 million proposal. In February, with the intent to move this transaction forward, FPL accepted FMPA's request for a lump sum payment of $52 million to compensate them for agreeing to the sale. FMPA offered and FPL accepted, subject to technical issues that have not taken that deal off the FMPA offered and FPL accepted, subject to technical issues that we believe, based on our previous conversations with FMPA, would be acceptable to them. To be clear, we have not taken that deal off the table, and FPL will stand by its agreement if the city and its customers would like to pursue it. Based on our calculations, we continue to believe that such a large payment more than fairly compensates FMPA members for any perceived risk they hold, and that bondholders would actually be better off from both a credit and financial perspective. Unfortunately, based on our reading of the minutes, it appears FMPA is no longer willing to honor that offer and would instead like for the city and FPL to pursue a separate agreement with OUC. Again, in an effort to accommodate the FMPA's wishes, we are now in active and constructive discussions with OUC to try to identify another path forward. Again, Mayor, all of us at FPL appreciate your efforts to move this process forward, and we remain hopeful that your determination to have productive discussions will result in all of the parties coming together to the table so we can work together to negotiate in good faith the remaining issues. We look forward to continuing to work together with you to bring lower electric bills to Vero Beach customers. Thank you, and please let me know how we can continue to support the city's efforts in addressing FMPA's concerns. Sincerely, Sam Forrest, Vice President, Energy Marketing and Trading.
Would you like to? I think it's a useful letter, and
I have copies.
you know, I don't think this kind of negotiation goes on in city council and public, but I think there's a number of things that potentially were covered that represent real progress, and I think the fact we have a dialogue going is very, very useful, and I appreciate the letter. I would say for the public, and with the permission of City Council, Friday last, Mr. Comet, Mr. O'Connor, and I did a video, and I think it would be useful if that video, was made available generally to the public on the website, because it explains some of the background, and then we'll move forward with the letter, and I'm very appreciative of receiving it.
Yeah, we're just asking, hopefully, that one of the next steps soon will be for us to all meet together to discuss some reasonable alternatives to this particular issue.
Well, I'm sure Mr. O'Connor will get back with you, but if the majority of City Council doesn't have an objection, there's a 38-minute tape that you can get out there, and we were asked after the meeting for our comments, the three of us, and we have answered lots of questions, and I think that would be interesting background for the letter as a step to move ahead. So unless there's objection, I would ask that Council allow it to be made public.
Which is fine, but I certainly have a few questions I would like to have addressed here publicly.
That's fine, but you're okay if we put the tape on the website. That way you can see at least last Friday what the input, what we felt at that point in time before receiving Mr. Forrest's letter. And I'm appreciative of the letter. I think it's another step. And I guess my only other comment is that Mr. O'Connor, Mr. Common, and myself did this at Sam Forrest's request and at City Council request and FMPA's request because it looked like we were not going anywhere. Now it sounds like we're going somewhere. Where it ends up, I don't know, but I think that's a step in the right direction. And I know the tape starts out with the three of us saying that, we're committed to moving the sale forward, and that's what we've been commissioned to do by City Council and the public. So those are my comments, but I welcome the letter. Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
Yes, Mr. Everett, it's okay at this time. The minutes that were provided to the public, I did not see any signature on them. Who prepared these minutes?
I'd rather Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Common answer the questions because they handled the interface. In other words, I did not. I was at the meeting, certainly.
Actually, it was prepared by the assistant counsel at FMPA, but we had input, we had conversations after the meeting and before the minutes were actually printed. And so we went over some of the details of that before it became a public record in our hands.
So the three of y'all are quite comfortable that this accurately reflects the meeting, the subject of the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
That's fine. FMPA had three attorneys present at the meeting. Their chief counsel, Fred Bryant, their assistant counsel, Jody Finklia, and a bond counsel. Why were we not allowed to bring our transactional attorney?
The request was that from FMPA.
Once again, so FMPA gave us no reason that we were not allowed to bring our transactional attorney.
No, ma'am. They just requested that it only be representatives directly as from the city.
However, they felt that they could have further representation. I think it was within the minutes of the meeting. It wasn't clear about who removed the $52 million offer, but I guess according to what Ms. Brunges has said and your interpretation that FMPA said that was no longer a viable option, or they were removing that.
That is correct. I had conversations with FPL several days before our meeting, and I think it was the morning of the meeting, Amy, that we talked about the $52 million. And FP&L's position at that time was if FMPA wants to take the deal, they will, exactly what she said tonight. But it was very clear and apparent that we were going to sit there for an hour or two and discuss the $52 million. So based on my conversations with FP&L, as I told them, this is off the table. We don't need to beat that horse anymore, because they made it very clear that they were not interested in taking the power at any price.
In the minutes of the meeting, Mr. Mayor, you said that the end of the year deadline for closing the transaction was not imperative. What is your timing? Was a timeline at all discussed?
Well, that's a good question. No timeline was discussed. Actually, in the two meetings we had with Florida Power and Light, and Amy was at the second with Sam Forrest, the question of the time came up, the January 1st, 2015. And I had earlier taken a position that it needed to be done by then. And when Sam Forrest and I were talking about it, he said, what happens if it can't be accomplished by then? And I said, it's not an imperative. In other words, what's important is to accomplish the deal. So, I think I was on consistent ground with what I told Mr. Forrest. Obviously, we would want to do it by that date. I have said in the tape, which those can see, that based upon my experience in doing deals like this, and based upon the number of papers that have to be changed, the amount of money that has to be determined for some of the contingent liabilities and so on, it is my professional belief, having done this before, that it would be very difficult to do this. And I didn't want to have a date out there that the city was set in that would say, if we don't do it by then, it's over with. It's not over with if it takes longer than January 1st. So the answer to the question, I was doing it consistent with what I had told Mr. Forrest. Is that not correct?
Yes.
But we have yet to create any sense of urgency or requesting their help. I think the problem is that we are actually moving backwards. I'd gone through, back on May the 3rd of last year, a letter was received by our attorneys from the assistant attorney of FMPA, and they had been questioning the All Requirements project and trying to go over whatever withdrawal costs we might still have. And the only things noted in this letter was the Taylor swaps and a possible environmental liability. Edwards and Wildman responded to that one. And then I see in the minutes here, all of a sudden we have other potential projects coming up that in the past 2.5 to 3 years have never been mentioned. Cane Island, Stanton, Oleander, KUA, Treasure Coast, Cane Island Unit 4. That these are all new items that had never been discussed. And yet, we're willing to work with you and we're going forward. FMPA has said that they want to keep to the letter of their contracts, and I asked them to do just that. The swaps were clearly identified as to be handled in debt portion within the contract. Under the ARP contract, Section 29C1. So our liability for pulling out of the All Requirements project would be based on CROD, which is the contract rate of delivery at that time. Well, we have not taken any power from All Requirements since 2009. Actually, our actual cutoff date was 2010, but we still no power at that time, nor are we receiving any power now. Therefore, clearly, our liability would be zero. So if FMPA wants to follow their contracts on one issue and not on others, I'm having a real difficult time. And like I said, this is issues that we covered over 1.5 years ago, and they're saying, we got to start all over.
Mrs. Turner, we didn't negotiate to this meeting. It was a clearing of the air. And one of the things I asked specifically was that Nick call your people up as soon as possible and let's start talking again. They stated that, and in the 38-minute video, I say there's a couple new things, and you correctly pointed them out.
Oh, definitely.
I had not seen them before, but we were not negotiating. Those are all just for negotiation, but they're all open now to negotiation. I don't think we can solve it if we don't talk to them and they're agreeing to talk to us. So now we have to do what we should have done before, which is negotiate with them.
I
think we had opened that door, had been trying to. I think it's a further delay, stall tactic. However, I was encouraged with Mr. Giardelli's statement that the FMPA will proceed in a transparent manner assessing these stranded costs. And I'm very anxious for all our All Requirements Project participants and participants of other FMPA projects to see a transparent process and to see that they are going to be treated fairly and equitably as well. The manager said FMPA's interests are the interests of our member cities, including Vero Beach. And I certainly hope that that proves to be the case, that we will all be treated in a fair and equitable manner.
Thank you for your comments. And, there are concerns, but I think the city manager would say we're prepared to move forward.
I think that's the only direction that we can move. There's obviously going to be issues. As noted in the minutes, and the thing that I try to bring out, if we could quantify the issues, then we figure out on a business deal what is the financial. And that's really what we're doing. And we got into this contingent liability dealing with those plants. And they talked about Crystal River 2, and, on a nuclear plant could take 50 years. So it'd be very difficult to quantify that. But at least in the all requirements, whether we like the number or not, at least we're going to get a number that can at least have something that we can put our arms around. The other is going to be, what can we do to address that contingent liability nobody can quantify? Obviously, we're in a position that we can't really do anything. I mean, the risk is going to be OUC under contract, so hopefully we can convince FMPA that is a major backstop, because if you look at some issues such as a plant going down and having major environmental problems, OUC obviously has many more assets than the city of Vero Beach does. So.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Forst was referring to in the letter when he said that this demand of the FPL guarantee would put the FMPA in a far superior position. Even with OUC, they'd be in a far superior position than they are today with Vero Beach. So I leave you with, please, we'll be waiting to hear from you and the city manager as to and when we can all get around the table to resolve all these issues that have now been identified. Thank you.
No, I think it's a useful conversation, and we can't negotiate in public. One interesting thing, I did not know that $52 million was off the table when I got in the car that morning to go to Orlando. And actually, the confirmation of that was given Jim, and we gave that confirmation to FMPA. And I think it's useful to the degree that the bugaboo in this has always been all these agreements, primarily with FMPA, but also with OUC. And how do we exit the agreements and satisfy what has to be satisfied? So I think the useful thing about the dialogue with FMPA is we're not dealing with money, we're dealing with some real issues, which you point some out. I agree with you. I don't have any problem with that. You're on the FMPA board, I might point out, so you're there a lot more than the rest of us. So you have had your chance to express it to them, I'm sure. Correct?
Today, to keep a low profile, but I certainly raised some questions that I want to make sure
thank
that.
You. Thank you.
We really hope to continue to work with the city as partners to get these issues resolved with the FMPA, and that's going to be important to us. So thank you.
All right, we'll move to general public comment. I'm going to start on the right side of the room, from the back to the front. Really, any subject is okay. If it's on the agenda, then I ask you to hold it until such time do we get to the agenda. Thank you. Is there anybody on the right side of the room that would like to make a comment? See no one on the left side, starting in the back. Anyone like to make? Well, you asked me early on, sir, so you go first. You came early. You did. I don't know whether I like what you have to say, but I'm going to listen.
I'm going to be very point real quick. I understand.
I have your name for the record, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Stark, 4336 21st Lane, Vero Beach. Long time. I go to the post office all the time, and I've been discussing a matter that means something to me. Obviously, you can see I'm handicapped. Why can't the city owns that building the way I understand it? Why can you people not at least put doors on that thing for handicapped people? I would love any of the council to come on down to the post office, call me, and I'll bring a wheelchair down, and I'd like to see if you can get into any of you. Doesn't matter. It's just a joke. And the post office does have an immense amount of people that come in. Why? There is an act, for handicapped people.
Disabilities
Why
Act.
is the city of Vero Beach not doing it? Well, can anybody answer it?
Well, under our lease, the post office obviously has operation and use of the building, and then they have to make accommodations according to federal law, and I presume they meet ADA standards. I have not done an inspection to find that out, but
I talked to them, and they say come to you.
Well,
Could we ask for review of our
government.
lease of that building and see what requirements we would have and who's?
we will do that.
Yeah, thank you.
In other words, real quick, like when people go in there to get packages, obviously. Now, you ought to see trying to take a stroller and push on those doors with one hand and push the stroller and carry the package at the same time. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I would appreciate if you'd give that some consideration.
We'll check into it, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you for doing it. You're
Thank you
doing
for
exactly
doing
the right thing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, John Wester, 455 Fiddlewood Road, Vero Beach, 32963. It's been about a month now since we've taken over the dog park, and I just wanted to give you a little recap of what we've done in the last month. There haven't been a lot of improvements on the ground because organizing something is difficult. But we have put up 2 new signs. We've been working hard behind the scenes. As Mr. O'Connor can tell you, we have lots of questions. And we have got a website now that's being constructed. It's verodogpark.org. We have a Facebook page, Friends of the Vero Beach Dog Park. We've been able to collect a little over 4 years' worth of reserves for the maintenance account. We've got about 3/4 of our improvements that we plan on making funded or pledged. And Friday, we're going to go over the final plan before we present it to the city boards in the coming month. And we are prepared to go with most of it as soon as we get approval.
Right.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Also, just for information, we do plan the P&Z will review those site plans with the Marine Commission and the Recreation Commission.
Yeah,
We talked
and one of the person who is owner site plan is Robin Polensky's, and she's on P&Z. So that really helps.
And don't forget, you need to bring it back to the council, too, for approval.
Yeah, we'll follow.
Okay.
You're getting to know us quite well, aren't you?
Yeah, too well.
Mr. O'Connor, are we looking at what to do with the fact that now we're going to kind of have a defunct baseball diamond? Is that going to change the shape of the park? Are we working on anything?
No, we are not on anything at the time because we still have the lights and the fence and that kind of stuff. We're not really sure if and when that's going to be removed. We also are reviewing the use of the restrooms. Ms. Turner brought that up about the grant from the fine. There is a possibility we could refurbish those restrooms at the baseball field and sort of keep them separate. We had a little incident over the weekend that had a little clash there at the River House. And so it brought it to the forefront that if there's a way of converting it, one of the things that we would like to do, if it's going to be permissible under the grant, the restrooms at the ball field are on septic tank. If that could be our first step program, and to see how that would work when the law changes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Jake Jondro, 495 14th Avenue, Vero Beach. I just had some information for that gentleman. I'm working for a local contractor, First Fire and Security here in Vero, and we're renovating the 1551 U.S. Post Office on Route 1 for handicap accessibility. And they're putting millions of dollars into that, expanding it, and I believe they're closing that other office, so he'll be able to get into that other one. So I was going to try to catch him before he left, just to let him know that. So.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
kind of you.
Mr. Wilson?
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Charlie Wilson. I live at 2134 18th Avenue in the city of Vero Beach, and I am a city resident. First of all, I want to thank Amy for her report, and I want to thank Amy for not walking away and leaving us looking for lifeboats as the great FMPA Titanic sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Once again, the information coming from FMPA, we can see that FPNL is our ally and FMPA is our captor. We're a little bit like Lucy in the football. How many times can Charlie Brown believe that Lucy is going to put the football down and not jerk it away as soon as he tries to kick the ball? We are exactly in that position again. Now, a reporter the other day asked me to write a story about what actually happened. What can I prove, and what is the problem? And particularly the reporter asked, how can you prove that the Indian River Neighborhood Association is anti-sale and is what is behind the difficulties that we're facing? And so I wrote the story. Now, it may take me too long, and you probably don't want to hear it.
Mr. Wilson, I'm probably not interested in you tackling an outside group. I mean, to me, it goes outside the business of city council. So I'm probably not interested in that. I mean, your article is fine. Thank you for writing it.
I didn't know that you had the authority to decide what people say and what they don't say.
I think what he's trying to say is that there's a relationship between you, the citizen, and us, the city council, and that's where this needs to stay.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to air out about somebody else, that's somewhere else.
Well, in the words of my good friend B. Gardner, you have to connect the dots. And part of connecting the dots is that you have a situation here. And part of that has come from a public information request that has been released by the city clerk. So it is not a personal attack at someone. It simply is a listing of the information. If you don't, I mean, I understand. If you don't want to hear it.
The city clerk gave me all the information that she said she had. I went through it. It's all public record. And if you want to say something about what the city is doing or not doing, that's fine. But if you're attacking an outside group, I don't care whether it's the YMCA, a political party, or whatever. That's not the business of the city, and it comes within the framework of what we do. So I'm not interested in witch hunt, Charlie.
There's one small difference, Mr. Mayor, and with all due respect, and I want to be as civil as maybe we can be more civil if everybody else would be more honest. That the fact is that some of the people from the Indian River Neighborhood Association have been appointed to official boards. And when they are appointed to official boards, that makes it city business. When we make a request of a public information request, and we find out, for instance, that a member of the Utilities Authority, regardless of who it is, a member of the Utilities Authority has had over 100 independent telephone calls between the FMPA and themselves and did not reveal that to the commission.
Mr. Wilson, this has gone far, and I saw what was given to the city clerk. I believe everyone else saw it also. You're attacking the Indian River Neighborhood Association and an individual who's not here. That's not part of the business of this council. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. I do not want to be disrespectful to the chair. They taught me in the military that you salute the rank and not the person. And but there is something called appealing the decision of the chair. And the chair is not, we don't go by Robert's Rules of Order. You go by the decision of the chair that is concurred with the rest of the commission. So if the rest of the commission doesn't want to hear information, then that is fine. But it is setting a complete precedent that you are trying to edit what you don't want to hear. Now, This is the first time in the history of this city council, including when Mr. Kramer very patiently sat and listened to person after person after person. And at least Mr. Kramer is honest about his position, so God bless you. But the fact is I do have information. You are telling me that I can't give you information that you don't even know what it is. You just simply don't want to hear it.
Is it information regarding the city? If so,
yes. Yes,
Mr. Kramer.
Let's just get it going.
Okay, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay. I will skip the points about the Indian River Neighborhood Association, who they are, how they're organized, how much money they've spent, and who they've given money to. But let's suffice to say that there is a history and a documented series of documents that show that the Indian River Neighborhood Association has great power and authority and great influence over particular individuals. But I will get all right, so let's say you have an organization. You, Mr. Winger, God bless you, have someone that you have identified as someone you listen to that is your advisor on legal affairs. You as mayor representing the city of Vero Beach, and that is George Christopher. Now, it just happens that George Christopher is one of the directors of the IRNA. George Christopher also sits on the Utilities Authority. Based upon a public information request, there were several pieces of information that we found. Number one was a series of telephone calls that were made directly from George Christopher to the FMPA, totaling over 100. Okay. The second thing we found was a memo where the legal staff of the FMPA directly contacts George Christopher without going through the city clerk. Directly contacts George Christopher. The last memo that they contacted George Christopher with was a request from George Christopher for the FMPA to recommend attorneys. George Christopher, your advisor, sitting on the Utilities Authority, requested the FMPA to give him a list of attorneys that could then sue for malpractice, presumably the attorney hired by the city of Vero Beach. Okay? Did you see that memo?
Mr. Comment, what do you think of this train of events? Well,
no, I think if that's true, I would like to see this memo. Yeah, I have not seen this memo. I think that's appalling.
I haven't seen it either. Let's see it.
Okay. It's right outside. And Ms. Vach has it, and I had intended to present this to the Utilities Authority, which is where I made that request. But it is a matter of the public record, and it is a list of 3 attorneys that Mr. Bryant gave to Mr. Christopher. And there is a memo also from the assistant to Mr. Bryant that says, "Dear George, you might be interested in this." And this was done after George Christopher was a member of the Utilities Authority. Commission, thank you so much. Okay? So I understand why you don't want me to present all this.
No, it's not that. It's just that it doesn't touch.
No, but this falls into play with back at that meeting that FMPA could have 3 attorneys, but they wouldn't let us bring our transactional attorney who'd already, found the holes in some of their contract, and they didn't want to deal with them anymore. I mean, that is, just. So the FMPA now wants to delegate or tell us who we can use to represent our interest or who they'll negotiate with. It's incredible.
I would suggest not addressing this until you have a chance to review this.
Well, perhaps you'd like the review. Perhaps you'd like the city clerk to read it into the minutes. So read it into the record.
It's a good idea.
This is public comment.
This is Mr. Wilson. This is public comment, not a witch hunt, and we will read it. We will read it into the record. I don't know why Mr. Christopher had 3 lawyers, but he has a perfect right as a citizen to talk and gather information. I don't have any idea. So, Mr. Kramer, what's your suggestion, please?
Well, I don't like the ambush politics where just something shows up and then we have to make the assumption that it's actually true. I don't have a problem talking about it. I would like a chance to authenticate the information before we go into any type of discussion about it.
It's right there. You can authenticate it. It's right there.
Well, when I say authenticate, I'd like to check with FMPA and said, did you write this?
It was provided by the city. You know,
Mayor, it's your call. You run the meeting.
Did you read that into the record since I don't have a chance to see it?
No, I think it's a public record. It has to be read into the public record. There's no question of that.
Thank you.
And I think at this point, Mr. Kramer, what would be the next step that you would suggest? I'm open to comment.
Well, if you've got, it's going to be a public record anyway.
So just read, if you've got a hand, please read it as well.
George, as you and Fred Bryant discussed, below are the names of 3 attorneys. These were provided to us by our litigation counsel, who is a prominent member of the trial bar in the state. His name is Dave Dunlap Jr., and he can be reached at phone number William Strop, Becker and Polikoff, Jack Scarola, Circe Denny, Scarola, Barnhart, and Shipley, Lois Buck Bosell Jr., Bosell and Berg. Each of these 3 attorneys is an experienced and well-respected trial attorney who is also known to be a good business litigator and has experience with legal malpractice claims.
Mr. Kramer?
The point that I'm trying to make
Just let him finish.
is that there is a series of evidence that provides the opportunity to give you will show very clearly why this has gone from a done deal to a dead deal in 5 months. So I tell you what, I think in order for you to take a look at it and make your defense, I will come back.
I don't have to defend it because I'm not involved in it, but go ahead.
I will come back at
Nor does the city council have to defend it to you, Mr. Wilson. We're not involved.
He is your advisor, Mr. Christopher, or is.
He was appointed by this council.
You wanted to take him secretly to the negotiations to FMPA without telling anybody.
Mr. Mayor, you know, if I read this correctly, I mean, this has to deal with legal malpractice claims. This has nothing to do with the FP&L deal at all.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, we've heard it. We read it into the record. That's it. That's it.
Here is my statement for today that I can give to the record for the clerk.
Fine.
She can see what the statement is that I would have made had you not blocked it. Now, Mr. Winger, the difference is what I'd like to ask is a question. Because
Bailiff.
it comes down to it. Bailiff? What
You can ask a question.
No, I'm Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry of witch hunts. I really am. I really am.
So wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead, read it. Let's go ahead.
Close the public.
What do you want to do now?
I'm providing this to the clerk. Let me read it.
No, provide it to her, by all means.
This is my written statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all due respect, sir, the last time we had our meeting, when we left and we got a chance to chat, you and I, you're a nice fellow, I have nothing personal against you. One of the things that we said is we're going to have an interesting election coming up. And one of the things you said to me is, quote, we are going to have a good slate of candidates. My question to you, sir, and the whole reason for this is, who is we? Who is we? Is it the ratepayer, the taxpayer, or your friends at the Indian River Neighborhood Association?
I have no association with the Indian River Neighborhood Association. Please, Mr. Wilson, enough is enough. I have no association with them. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I was not able to spend my 3 minutes as awarded by the, uninterrupted by the rules of the City Council. Thank you very much.
No, of course not.
It seems like there is a problem
There's
with
a
it.
problem with it
Jiggle it a
tonight.
little bit, Brian, see if it... The switch in the back there.
They go there?
Still dead.
Dead?
It's
Get the
top-
portable.
it's a
Yeah,
top
I was
switch.
going to say,
Just
Brian
step
knows
on the
where that
heavy
one
switch
is.
there?
Turn it up a little bit, see if that helps, Brian.
Yeah, here's Hall.
There it is. Yeah. There's that slide.
Can you sit down here at the table, or?
That one should be working.
Yeah, why, you could go to the,
That one died.
Brian, want to try it at the table? Now they're all out.
Let you out now.
Check.
You can have mine.
I don't want yours. I've been up there. I've done that. This is the better side.
Take a 10-minute break.
Check, check.
I think that'd be a wise idea. Mayor, how about a break while they work on the mechanics and we can.
yeah, I don't have any sound either. We'll take a break to 7:20 and allow the mechanics to work.
We got it. Check.
It's working now, Mayor.
Working now? Well, there we go.
You want to stop?
Well,
Okay.
He didn't cut the tape anyway.
Recall
We
the
didn't
break.
cut the tape. Everyone's still here. We'll continue. Go ahead. Mr. Hetty.
It was interesting how the microphone went out during his presentation. And I had the microphone turned off when I was presenting things that the mayor didn't want to hear, and the mayor turned the mic off. And so we've been down that road before. I wanted to address specifically one of the council members, Amelia Graves, and I wanted to say thank you.
Okay.
The look of horror on your face.
For a second.
Now, you and I can agree to disagree on the issues, but I think that it's important to support principle, and certainly no council member should be intimidated or bullied into giving a particular point of view or whatever. And I thought it was admirable for you to stand up and speak that. And again, we can agree to disagree on the issues, but I think that if we don't agree to support the principles that are the foundation of this country, then we're all in trouble. And those principles include free speech, includes citizens coming to the public podium and saying what it is they want to say. And yes, that was, Mr. Wilson, was about city business. And the other council member that I wanted to specifically address was Pilar Turner, and say thank you for your leadership in putting at least the brakes on, or indicating where the brakes might be on the public funding. You didn't come out against All Aboard Florida, and I think coming out against All Aboard Florida in an official capacity would be a very big mistake for this council or the commission that I serve on. They have legal rights. I think that they claim to have legal rights they don't have, but they do have legal rights, and they should be allowed to pursue those legal rights uninterrupted. And but I also think that it's good to have someone on city council, and hopefully the whole council will see it that way, that we need to stop the public funding. If this is a good idea and it's going to make a lot of money, that's fine. I think the parent company is something in the neighborhood of a $60 billion corporation, $60 billion worth of assets. And so they have plenty of assets to do whatever it is that they want to do without ripping us off or dipping into our pockets. And Next thing that I wanted to address was that the things that are said here at the public podium sometimes make news, sometimes the be it print or radio or my television show or blogs or word of mouth, certainly things that people say at this public podium are spread around. One of those outlets has called repeatedly for civility and has attacked anyone that has taken an opposing view with you, Amelia. And I don't have a problem with people taking an opposing view, but that particular news outlet, when asking for civility, what that's code for is don't disagree with us, because our opinion is right. Quite frankly, I know that I learned a lot on both sides of that dais from opposing views. And anyway, this particular outlet referred to those of us who come here and dare to question as using Nazi tactics. And I think Mr. Schuman has gone way over the top by referring to us as using Nazi tactics. And maybe those who listen to him will understand how offensive that really is. And I think the principles that this country is founded on, and us having the ability to come here and have opposing views, is a lot of things, but not what Mr. Schuman refers to him as. Then the next is the mayor at a recent meeting. One citizen came to this podium and opposed who he was bringing to that FMPA meeting as his counsel, and without any consultation with the other council members, the mayor, as an individual with a gavel in his hand, decided to make an instant decision, and he turned to the gentleman in the audience and he says, "You're uninvited. And you can't go to the FMPA meeting." And I quite frankly don't care who you bring, Mr. Mayor. I think that you're certainly entitled to bring whoever you want. I know when I served on council, I met with people, and I took a lot of heat for meeting with some people. But whether I agreed with their point of view or not, I think that their advice or their comments were useful, and it's unfortunate that you didn't have the same kind of backbone that Councilmember Graves had. I mean, she showed some leadership, but you showed that you were going to be beat into submission, and you were going to do what a citizen suggested. And I have to wonder whether that citizen is king. Certainly they're not. But anyway, then at this meeting, or at the last meeting, the mayor said he has to do something with citizen input. Have to do something because there's a problem with that. No, sir, there's not a problem with citizen input. The problem is the restrictions. And I think that if you look at the meetings since you've been mayor, and then go back in and look at the meetings where Councilmember Turner was mayor, where Councilmember Kramer was mayor, you'll find that they had less trouble with the public podium, but they weren't trying to control the input. They weren't trying to direct what people said. I know that when Mr. Fletcher was mayor, he used some of the same tactics that you've tried to use, and put the police officer in a very bad spot. And I think often the police department knows that what mayors like you tell them to do are not what they should be doing. And you shouldn't place the police department in those kinds of positions. And the last, I would invite the mayor to come on my television show. Come on down to Fire It Up, and let's talk about some of these issues. And we won't be taking up staff time. We won't be taking, and there will be a video of it, and it'll go out over the air. And let's discuss some of these things, because there's some serious things going on that shouldn't be going on.
Mr. Hetty, I accept your invitation, and I have a question for you, just for the fun of it. Not for the fun of it, for the learning process. You started by talking about All Aboard Florida and what our position should be. And I'm not quite sure I understood the intent of your meeting. I mean, here we have something that's coming through that's largely, as I understand it, going to be financed by federal loans, even though it's privately owned, and that it's going to be disruptive to the community, and that's a bad situation. Plus, if it happens, then we have all sorts of, we have noise problems, safety problems, and so on. I didn't understand your stance. I mean, you thanked Mrs. Turner for her position. Can you thumbnail for me what your position is, what you think our position should be? Because we're going to deal with it later, and I'm curious. I mean, I didn't understand where you were going.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I think that we have a rail commission that is debating the issues, but while we have a rail commission that's debating the issues, we also see that without a consensus or a vote by that rail commission, we see letters being sent out by you, to your signature, to senators saying, you know, please help finance this private entity. And I don't think that's something that we should be doing. I think that if a rail wants to come through, and if they want to put high-speed rail through Florida, and the public decides that they want to finance that, that's one thing. But that's not what we have here. We have a private company that has come to town and said, we're going to do this with private money. And after looking into it, we find out that none of that was the case, that we were being deceived, that what they're really trying to do is they're trying to get public money to upgrade the rails and put in a second rail and do a lot of other things, including putting in safety gates. And it seems to me that there are laws on the books, both federal and local, that say that if that private entity wants to utilize the rights that they currently have, that they can do that. But they have to do it in a safe way. So let them put safe gates in at their expense. You just said that they're clearly going to be disruptive in noise and whatnot. Well, you know, I lived, my property, and when I moved from New York back in the 80s, my property actually adjoined the railroad. And I can tell you that I rode the railroad back and forth into New York and took Metro North. And the commuter rails, and the commuter rail, I believe, that's being proposed here, is not going to be as noisy as the freight. You run some of those freight lines down, and I think you've got a bigger noise problem from the freight than you will have from the passenger. I think that a passenger train, as proposed, doing 110 miles an hour down through town, I don't think the noise will be very long, number one. And the vibration that was a complaint. If you remember, there was a speaker here at this podium a few weeks ago when the rail went through, and I was probably out of order because I hollered from the back of the room, by the way, there's the railroad, because you could hear the whistle. But the room wasn't vibrating. And I think that you lose credibility when you exaggerate. And I think that it's an exaggeration to say that this community is going to be destroyed if this were to happen. I don't think that's true. Personally, I don't see how this whole rail thing is viable, but it's not my money. I'm not investing in it. And if they want to spend a couple of $2 billion through Florida and a couple of $1 billion on manufacturing trains in the United States, God bless them. Bring on the jobs. I just don't think this is ever going to happen if we do one thing. And the one thing that we need to do is follow Councilmember Turner's direction and say no to public funding. No, we don't need to ask the federal government to come in and help us put in safety equipment. They have a responsibility. They have an obligation to put in safety equipment. the whole speed thing, there's current speed limits now that exist at 79 miles an hour. They'd have to change the law in order to come through at what they propose. And, if anything, if you don't want it through the town, don't change the law. Encourage your senators, your congressmen, not to change the law. Don't change the law to accommodate this.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've learned something from you, and in all fairness, the letter that went out, I believe, had been asked, and it followed the guidance of City Council, and I think it attempted to do it. I will point out to you that Senator Negron has changed his position as it's been concerned, and that Congressman Murphy to the south of us has changed his position. So I find what you said interesting, and I thank you for it.
I think that the public officials involved have listened to the groundswell of opposition, and that's a good thing. They should listen. In order to represent us, they have to listen to us, and they have to listen to all sides. And they've listened to the opposition loud and clear. And but still, as a governing authority, I think that the city council and the commission that I'm on, High Speed Rail, we have to be very cautious with respect to these words stopping the rail. I don't think it's our job to prevent people from using the rights that they have on their own property. But I think that it's equally important for us to ensure that when they do come through our town, that they'll obey our noise ordinances, that they'll obey the current speed limits, and that they put in gates that are appropriate that will stop traffic.
And also that they not receive federal funding.
Oh, I don't think we should give them any funding. Okay. It's a private company.
This is on me, and thank you for your comments. I asked for them, and I appreciate them.
You're welcome, sir.
I'd like to take, Mr. Kramer asked for a break. Please? Yeah. Can we take a, let's see, 7:26, what do you want to go to? 7:40? Okay. 7:40, we're going to break to 7:40.